You're listening to the Replatform podcast sponsored by Ampliance and Klaviyo, hosted by myself, James Gurd, and my co-host, Paul Rogers. Hey, today, mate.
Yeah, good. Thanks. How are you doing?
It's Friday. It's sunny. I've broken my back drilling holes in concrete today, which has been massively exciting. Right. So let's set up today's topic for everybody. But firstly, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for our regular listeners for listening again. And if you're new to the podcast, we hope you enjoy it. And we'd love you to subscribe to get new episode alerts because we drop one every week. And we'd love a like on YouTube, Spotify or Apple. So today's topic is looking at some like trending or emerging technology being used by e-commerce teams. So we're not focusing on really big, well-established systems like CMSs, e-com platforms. We're looking at some of the additional third-party tech that people plug in to increase the capability and functionality set, drive better customer experience. So we're going to look at some of the capability areas that get investment, newish tech that's getting established and who's using it. What are some of the things we like about it and what we're seeing that clients are achieving with it, and what the benefits are, and where we have worked with some of them directly, are there any opportunities for new features or anything coming down the road that's exciting? So we've picked out our top 10. We know that the technology marketplace is riddled with vendors. I think the MarTech space alone is something like 4,000 or 5,000 at the last count. So we're just picking out ones that we're aware of, that we've had direct experience either integrating or our clients working with, where we've seen it in practice. And if anyone has worked with any of these and would like to add more comments to it, please do reach out afterwards. So with no further ado, let's crack on. Paul, do you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So my first one is advanced commerce, which is it's actually a broader product than just category merchandising and visual merchandising. So they offer search and product recommendations as well, but I'm focusing mostly on the kind of VM capabilities. They're quite new, started by the founder of Attract. I think he left a few years ago and then started advanced commerce maybe 2 years ago. I think we both know him, Andre. So I've had a few demos with them. We've had quite a few clients look at them. I think we've got one client implementing them now and someone we used to work with that implemented them a few months ago. All good feedback. And essentially they support really complex business logic. They allow you to create pretty complex templates around the kind of base logic. You can pull in data from lots of different places. And then they also allow for kind of blending of machine learning, personalization, and then the kind of more manual business logic, which I think is where some people tend to fall down. And then, as I said, they also do product recommendations and search. The main reasons why I like it, so it's reasonably priced. So it's a lot more cost effective than some of the more enterprise players. They're pretty focused on Shopify. A lot of our clients use Shopify. And again, some of the other players aren't as focused on Shopify. And then I saw that you had added in some things that you, on your ones, that you don't like as much. So the only things that I don't like about it, things I'd like to see from them. So API implementation for Shopify so that you don't have to go down the JS grid route. And then also potentially improving the UI a little bit. But other than that, I've been really impressed with it. And yeah, like I say, lots of our clients are looking at it. And then I thought I'd add one other player in this space that I've been impressed with as well. And that's a company called Tagaless. So they're quite similar, maybe not quite as advanced, but they have the API implementation. They also have the ability to, they allow you to kind of create a set of logic and then apply it across multiple Shopify stores, which can be massive in terms of efficiency for teams. And then Kimonix was another one that's maybe again even slightly more cost effective and maybe not quite as advanced again, but still really good.
So in your mind, what type of e-commerce business does this tool best suit?
Well, that's advanced commerce is probably more I think most of them are targeting the mid-market. I think advanced commerce is mostly mid-market, but they work across different platforms, whereas Tagaless and Kimonix are very focused on Shopify, and they're probably more SMB and then mid-market.
Yeah, it's interesting because I spoke to Andre from Advanced Commerce only this morning because he gave me an update on the back end, and your comment about the UI is an interesting one because I think there are tools out there where they might have a stronger visual design and branding within the UI, but I really like the simplicity from the end user's point of view to use the configuration and building, and I like the hierarchy it's got of setting like the core template for your merchandising. So basically your strategy for a particular part of the site, and then build them on top of the logic so that you can always maintain your core strategy, but you can override it for specific situations, like a particular customer group gets a different set of business logic that overrides the underlying strategy, but that underlying strategy then exists for everybody else who doesn't fall into that specific set of business rules. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. But yes, agreed, that's a good tool.
I think the conversation about the UI was quite interesting that we had on Slack, because I know what you mean. Like, it's intuitive. I think it's always it's almost subjective with some of these like SaaS platforms. Like, there's another one that I can think of that it actually looks horrible on paper, but actually it's pretty usable. And then there's another comparison that I was mentioning earlier, where like essentially you've got a really powerful tool, but the UI is really hard to use. And every client I've had that's used it has found it really difficult to kind of actually roll out features and, like build out business logic. And then the other one is a lot more simple, but it's really intuitive. And then we've had loads of clients move from the first one to the second one.
Yeah, what I like about it is knowing the merchandising teams I've worked with. If you put a creative director in front of it, or a brand person in front of it, they'd probably be like, oh my God. But if you take a pure merchandiser who just wants to be able to effectively trade their site and control things simply, and do, like, one of the things I really like was the simplicity of being able to add ads into Grid, being able to set up an ad and set the conditions for when the ad appears. So this is the kind of like hero content in a grid alongside the products. So quick and easy and so simple and intuitive. And I've seen other tools where it's much more complicated to add them, even though the functionality is really good, and merchandising teams get a bit fed up with that. So that's what I like about it. And you can always improve the visual aesthetic of that. But the thinking behind the user journey, I think, was good. Okay, so let's go on to number 2. So mine is Roomvo or Roomvo. I don't actually know which way you say it. So it's get.roomvo.com. It's a product visualizer, but it's specialized in specific types of products. So it's kind of for interior design. So products including like paint, floorings, carpets, and rugs. I know it because one of my clients is the rug company, and they're a premium brand with high average order value and low order volume. But actually, product research and product consideration is a huge part of the funnel. The time to purchase is much, much longer than a lot of high street retailers. And these sort of tools really help people to make better and more informed product decisions when they can't get to a local showroom or they don't want to go to a local showroom. It's used heavily during product discovery phase. The rug company have found that people do use it a lot. So it's a core part of the product browser navigation before the product consideration piece. It's really simple to upload pictures of your room. And actually, the biggest challenge of these visualizations, and you've talked about this and talked about a lot with me in the past, Paul, and clients have said the same thing, is the rendering. How good a quality does the rendering look? If the visualization works and you can put your rug in a room, but it looks crap, premium brands run a mile. And I've worked with other premium furniture brands like Tom Dixon, where one of their concerns is the quality of the visualization of their product. And actually, this does a pretty good job of rendering and getting things like the angles. You take a picture of your room and the floor's angling because it's going away, and getting the rug so it's not just square in that it actually tapers in the way that the room's flowing in the picture. It seems to handle that well, and the product seems to look pretty good, and you can like rotate it and change the sizing. And nothing's perfect visually. You can't get a 3D perfect visualization, but I think it's simple to use from a user point of view. It works on mobile, but the one thing I would say is there are a couple of elements in the UI that could improve. Like on mobile, sometimes the carousel where you swipe through the different products to select can bounce around. And the one key thing it needs to make it better for e-commerce is smarter integration with the platforms. There's a view product, but it takes you to the PDP. It doesn't take you to the PDP with the size of rug that you selected to fit in your room. It takes you to the generic PDP. You then have to reselect the size if it's different, which is a bit of a pain in the arse. And the quick buy direct from the visualizer, being able to embed that in the visualizer and run that JS in there rather than to jump into the PDP and then add would do it. But these are all things, I guess, that are standard product roadmap management for vendors like this.
Great. And then my next one is Alloy, or Alloy Automation, which is essentially like a no-code or in places low-code automation platform. So I've been semi-hands-on with it. I played around with it a little bit in the past, and we've had a few clients that have used it. But it's actually a really broad tool. So it essentially allows you to connect different SaaS apps, or mostly SaaS solutions, but actually some other non-SaaS solutions as well, via APIs. and then it's kind of like a middleware layer. And then some of those integrations include like Amazon's different CRM platforms, SMS platforms, email, ecom platforms. They've got some ERP connectors as well, different 3PLs. And then essentially you can just, anyone can go in, connect Shopify, for example, connect Klaviyo, and then build what is essentially a flow, define your triggers, and then off you go. And it's pretty broad. It can help to automate a lot of different things that teams might be doing manually. And I'm really intrigued to see where it goes, particularly around some of the kind of more complex integrations they're starting to move into. So I looked at it more a couple of years ago when it was a bit more basic. And then I think they raised quite a lot of money about a year ago. And then, more recently it's getting a bit broader as well. So been really intrigued by it. You can also do things like push data into different systems and Slack notifications, all that kind of stuff. And it's essentially pretty similar to Shopify Flow, but outside of the Shopify space.
So if you're a Shopify merchant, is there a reason why you would use Alloy rather than Flow? Does it give something above and beyond what a Flow achieves?
Yeah, so right now it's got a lot more kind of connectors, I guess. So there'll be things like I used it. So in the early days of Flow, I was using it to pass data from Shopify to another but that's where I first discovered it. And Flow's getting better all the time, to be fair, and they're kind of constantly adding different third parties and different, like you can do things like, in fact, actually, I remember why I first used it is because it allowed for time-based stuff, whereas Flow didn't. So you could like say, download something, delay it by 3 hours, and then send an email or whatever. Or if something hasn't been done, 5 hours later, trigger a Slack message. Whereas in Flow, before you couldn't do that. Whereas now you can do time-based stuff. There'll be loads of things you can do in Alloy that Flow can't. But Flow is getting better all the time and is obviously really well connected in the Shopify space.
So it sounds like there's similarities then with Zapier and if this then that.
I think that's probably their biggest competitor, but again, like Zapier is even broader. I think they're probably trying to be like a more econ, a lot or like a more advanced, more specific version of.
Sounds like that we should get them on the podcast to talk through what are the most common and popular uses and what are the interesting flows that people have achieved. I think that'd be a great episode. Cool. So my next one, on to number 4, is Mishi Pay. And this is actually, so we know Fergal, who runs Validify, which is a platform that helps people through like RFPs and platform selection. He talked to us about Mishi Pay, and we're looking to get them on the podcast as well, because it's quite an interesting platform. So I've not worked with them, but I've looked at them and discussed what they do and why and how it's working. So basically, it's an in-store shopping or payment solution designed to reduce the need for in-store queuing. And in-store queuing loses people. I mean, there's lots of data out there. I'm going to quote random stats, but queuing costs people lost orders because people give up when the queues are too long. Example customers are Flying Tiger. So Mishi Pay have multiple products. A key one that Flying Tiger uses Scan and Go. And the case study claims that Flying Tiger has managed to achieve basket value increase of 35% of that. So instead of having to wait around for a till space to be free, you scan a barcode, you're able to make that purchase directly through the app, saves you the time, really efficient shopping in store through digital platform. I also think it's quite interesting because the potential for traditional retailers who don't yet have e-commerce presence but want to expand into digital solutions to be able to test e-commerce via that without having to invest in an e-commerce platform seems quite interesting. I'm not sure what the capabilities there. That's definitely going to be one to explore on the podcast. I think the things I like is the Scan and Go integrates with existing back-end systems to access things like product data and then feeds into OMSs. So you don't have to change or invest in new hardware for it. It updates the store inventory as well. So if people are scanning on and buying on the app, obviously that's got to be fed back into store stock levels to avoid overselling. And then it's got a simple dashboard for store or e-commerce teams to be able to monitor activity. So still in the early discovery phases, but it looks like an exciting in-store digital technology.
Great. And then, my next one is Celindo. So Celindo is essentially like, it does quite a few things, but it can kind of power product builders or configurators, and then they handle a lot of the work around kind of building out different kind of assets and renders. So both 3D and kind of more like similar to the one that you talked about at the start. They can do kind of like room shots and like lifestyle imagery and everything else. So it's really impressive. So they can do the whole kind of like 3D configuration piece with like inline visualization, like 3D assets, everything else. And then they would essentially build like master assets and go and build out loads of variations themselves. So it's kind of like a managed service. They're really good with the assets. So you can look at it on Heels, Loaf, and Conman, I think, have just launched it. But yeah, really high quality, really well done, even though it's all kind of CGI. And then, it's quite advanced around the integration. So they've got APIs, or they have like an embeddable kind of builder experience as well. And then I think they've got a native integration with Magento. I don't know if since I last worked with it, they've built that anymore. And then I also wanted to mention two other tools that I find really interesting in this space that we've been looking at with other clients recently. So one at Kix is a solution that essentially does kind of 3D models and kind of 360s and AR within the footwear space. And it's really impressive the way that it like snaps onto your foot and kind of stays there in the AR kind of when you're using the AR features. And then Tangibly is another one that used to just kind of essentially put products next to other things to provide kind of sizing context. And a lot of what they were trying to do was around sizing context. And then now they do a similar thing with like 360s and AR. And they've got a really nice offering in the particularly the watch space. So we've got a couple of watch clients. And again, the asset can kind of snap to your wrist, which has been like the holy grail for quite a while in that industry. A few others that are good.
And again, is this targeting the mid-market, SMEs? Is it enterprise? Is it anything?
I think that all three of these probably started off more enterprise and then have come down market. There's some smaller retailers definitely using Cylindro. And then when our clients have looked at that, it's not stupidly expensive. And then Tangibly, I think, is probably mid-market as well.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Good, because I've not heard of Kick, so that's an interest. I'm going to have to try that out.
They started out as an app that basically it was like visual search or something like that for sneakers, like really hard to get sneakers. But yeah, then they've ended up broadening into this. But yeah, it's a pretty cool solution.
It's one of the things I love about the technology space is seeing people pivot.
Yeah, absolutely.
With their product evolution.
What is Ampliance? In a word, it's freedom. The freedom to build a digital experience as limitless as your vision. Create, preview, schedule, and manage all your content in one easy place. Find out more at ampliance.com. Ampliance. Experience freedom. Okay, cool. So on to number 6. So I'm picking out Justuno. So justuno.com. It's targeted on-site customer messaging platform. Primarily, it started off for basket and browser abandonment, like exit intent overlays. The platform, as all these platforms do, has expanded massively. It's now, I guess you'd call it a customer personalization messaging suite. It has the ability to handle things like email and SMS as well. I've not looked at that part of the product. I haven't had a need to, so I don't really know much about that bit. I'm going to focus on the on-site merchandising and messaging bit, because that's the bit that I've used it for. I'm not going to look at the email SMS because most of my clients use other platforms like Dot Digital, Metria, Twilio, etc. In terms of customers, I mean, there's 133,000 customers because it's one of those low-cost, easy implementation tools. So it has a vast number of different e-commerce stores. I'm not going to try and list them all. But what I like about it, so I actually tried it on my own site. So I had a customer who I talked into try and exit intent because they had quite a lot of longer product journeys where people visited multiple times and then dropping off and not adding to basket. So I talked through targeting specific parts of those user journeys with relevant messages like USP-based message, customer service-based message, to try and entice people to remain in the product journey. And they were nervous about the installation, so I put it on my own site. Really, really quite a simple minimum code installation. Didn't have any negative impact on performance. Now, I will caveat that I'm not on a complex e-commerce site, so you obviously have to look at what impact any third party has on it. But it was easy to install. It was easy to set up the connection with GA, Google Analytics as well. And that's the really important bit, because for these overlays, to work, they've got to be targeted. They can't just be generic. The classic where you go to a site and every single person gets a get 10% off, get 10% off, and it becomes spammy and it becomes really, really annoying, and it can actually have a negative impact on the user experience. So the connection with the analytics enables you to micro-target people based on very specific behaviours. So, for example, I started trialing where people had viewed a particular content page 3 times but hadn't downloaded or hadn't requested more information, with an overlay to try and nudge them into doing that. I've worked with other clients in the e-commerce space where we use that on product journeys, where people on the second and third visit to that same product page, we start showing different information to reinforce USPs, to remind them of like free returns, to try and connect them to customer services people to help answer any questions, to reassure them. So it's a really good tool for targeting like that and getting away from those horrible generic pop-ups. Cost effective, as I said, it's from $25 per month for the like individual or small business, up to enterprise from $399 per month. You can do a free trial as well to check it out. And they added a nice resource section where they share insights and advice, which is obviously designed to try and persuade you into using their tool. But I like the fact that there's kind of use case and case study material in there.
Great. And then my next one, I was trying to decide whether to do this as like 1 or 2 solutions together, go off piece a bit, but I'll stick to it being one, is Triple Whale. So Triple Whale is like a reporting product, but they, up until now, I'd say they've primarily been known as like a solution around kind of attribution, primarily around Facebook. But they do have some broader reports. It's been built around the Shopify ecosystem. They've only been around for like 12 months, and they're probably the fastest growing or like most hyped third party I've ever seen. Like, it's nuts how much people are talking about them and how many of our clients are using them. And yeah, it's a pretty cool product. Like I said, it's growing really quickly, but they essentially have a server-side pixel. They're focused on attributing more revenue to under-attributed channels, like, and understanding different attribution journeys and everything. Quite heavily focused on Facebook. And then they do provide other reports as well. Like, I know they're reporting around customer lifetime value and things like that now. And then the other one that I was going to say, originally I was going to kind of combine the two with Northbeam, who are also growing really quickly. And I think it's good to see tools like these kind of popping up, because they're both reasonably priced. And in the past, some of the attribution tools that I've seen clients look at are like horrifically expensive. So yeah, it's good to see these kind of solutions becoming quite mainstream.
Cool. Yeah, another one that I've not used, no clients probably heard of. So interesting. Thank you. Okay, so my next one, on to number 7 now, is Hero, which I imagine quite a few people have heard of. There's a lot of big brands using it. So it's like shoppable video and virtual shopping tech to connect online shoppers with in-store sales teams. Example customers: Sephora, Ted Baker, Heels. I know, Paul, you said quite a few of your customers have used it. I seem to remember the fragrance shopper we've had on this podcast, when them mention it. I know they're doing the in-store connection bit. But what do I like about it? So one of the key challenges for e-commerce teams with physical retail is getting store teams on board to understand the benefit of e-commerce to them. There are still people who are very traditional in their beliefs and think that e-commerce is basically taking sales rather than contributing to the overall revenue and increasing revenue per customer. So the benefit of providing an online technology can actually increase engagement between customers and in-store teams to connect them with the sales staff, and therefore help those sales staff to sell more effectively, and also to sell to people who can't access a store or don't have the time to go in. That helps build the relationship between e-commerce and retail. But equally, from a customer point of view, they can connect to people who have great product knowledge, because retail teams often are some of the most knowledgeable people around the product. You know, they've had to talk to customers. They've heard what customers say and like and dislike. They've had product training, and they can be very, very effective at persuading, reassuring, converting. So there's obviously that revenue benefit to it as well. Interesting, I think Ted Baker have basically talked about the fact that Hero is helping them turn in-store sales associates into brand influencers. So it's changing the dynamic of what an in-store sales associate is able to do. It's great for complex products. I know some of the AV electrical retailers are using it, where someone's buying
a big expensive modern television, they connect to a salesperson to talk them through and answer the questions about compatibility, connections with existing home cinema systems, etc. So where guided selling is an important part of the conversion funnel. And also the side benefit is good for prospecting and lead gen, because the more people you can get from an online journey who are looking at product to speaking to a salesperson, even if they're not ready to buy, the ability for that salesperson to establish a relationship, capture that information and put that person into a CRM system and try and encourage that person to have a follow-up, or to ask them if they want more information, then to send it via an email that they've captured. There's all these additional abilities to increase the level of engagement you get with your customers. And I think, Paul, you told me this earlier, because a few customers, that the pricing's come down as well, hence why they've been busy acquiring new customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, loads of our clients were looking at it at the start of the pandemic, and it's pretty expensive. And then I don't know if they changed their model, but yeah, like the cost per store and then the setup cost and everything else came down loads, which is good. And then they obviously got acquired by Klarna afterwards. And then my next one is kind of cheating, but I've decided to do 5 solutions that I'm either intrigued by or have been impressed by. So the first one is Inveterate, which is a kind of, it's a loyalty program. It's from the guy that not necessarily built it, but founded the company. It's a guy called Dylan Whitman, who started BVA in the Shopify space, like very, very well known. And it's kind of positioned differently. So it's a bit more focused on membership. It's not as kind of maybe as focused on like kind of traditional tiers and standard loyalty. Their first pilot example, I forgot what the site's called, is a paid membership program with like slightly different kind of benefits to use than you'd expect. And I think they've come out to market quite interestingly. Like again, the UI and the reporting looks really nice. So yeah, I'm quite intrigued to see where they go. It's very early days, but intrigued to see where they go. Rebuy is a product we've been working with quite a bit recently. So very, very easy to implement kind of upsell solution. I think it's still only Shopify, but essentially like very easy to drop in kind of their little like widget into push carts. They actually do a full kind of they do have their own push cart now, which is like very well optimized in the standard kind of D2C manner, where you've got kind of like, you know, the progress bar to kind of push you to have more items to get free shipping, and like then you've got the personalized product recommendations and like all machine learned product recommendations. And then they also have a slot natively in the checkout in the top right hand corner, and then they do post-purchase recommendations as well. And then they do also do kind of more conventional product recommendations, but they're more known for the kind of upsells piece. But yeah, been really impressed with them. We've had some clients that have done really well as a result of them, particularly kind of going into a peak. Bit of an easy win type solution. The next one is Loop and Happy. So I think Loop Returns is the product that most of our clients have been really impressed with. You know, things like the exchanges, various other features that they've got. People have really the only thing with them is it has often been quite expensive, and because it's volume based, some of our clients have ended up being quoted a lot. Whereas the next one I was going to talk about, which is Happy Returns, which again is pretty similar. They can also do exchanges. I think it's slightly less flexible than Loop, but it's bought by PayPal, and that has resulted in it being a bit more accessible for some of our clients, but always been impressed by them. But both of them are kind of like lean return solutions. Small one that I'm not necessarily intrigued by, but I think will become really good is so checkout promotions in the Shopify space. So it's post-purchase recommendations product. And it was introduced by a guy called Gil Greenberg, who I met recently for the first time. He's just super passionate. The product's growing really quickly. It started out as a side project, and yeah, he's grown it really quickly. And I'm just intrigued more as a result of him being so like curious and kind of always looking to do new things that people haven't done before. I think it'll end up doing really well, either via that product or another one. And then Octane I've put as the last one. And I think Octane, so you mentioned guided selling, or at least you said guided selling earlier. And I think that's obviously a massive trend at the moment. More people are using quizzes and binders to either capture first-party data or just kind of, that whole guided selling journey. And I've mentioned Octane because I think they're trying to commoditize it. So there's other ones like Prezi and various other ones that are more enterprise that are trying to charge, 50 to 100 grand a year for this type of stuff. And then you've got Octane, which is much cheaper. And I think there's still various areas they can improve with the product, make it a bit less manual, et cetera, et cetera. But it is really cost effective and it is a really nice feature in a lot of industries.
Yeah, Octane's an interesting. I've had a couple of clients this year who basically been looking at that simply because of the cost affordability, and it gives them all of the fundamentals they need to do some good visual quizzes. Companies, especially a couple of the premium brands, where they want a visual experience of customers to guide them through like lifestyle selection, basically, to then output products. So interesting. You've raised that one. Right, so we're on to number 10, the last but by no means least. I've picked out Bamboozler. There's quite a few of these. These are live shopping platforms. So a platform that enables you to run a live shopping event where you've pulled in a third party, like a celebrity, or you've got a professional presenter, are presenting a series of products. It could be a new collection drop, it could be a new brand on the site, it could be just one single product doing an extended demonstration of a like, high ticket item, where people are watching it live, they're able to interact, and then they can then go on and buy that product. So the reason for Bamboozler is I've had a few clients speak highly of it, and Fragrance Shop was one of the ones. We had them on the podcast and they talked about it. They use it on their site. And what I like about it is that, so you can have it on your own site. You don't have to go to somebody else's domain. So it can be embedded in your site, which is really important to maintain people in that user journey. It has a comments thread in it, so people can start chatting and asking questions as they go through, ask questions direct to the presenter. Presenters can answer them obviously through the video chat, or they can answer into the text chat. And also what I think, a brand like the Fragrance Shop's done really smartly is they've added historical events to the website. So you go to their live, I think it's a TFS live section, and you'll have any new events coming up at the top. But you've got an archive of all the old ones where you can re-watch the recorded stream. And the smart thing about it is it pulls in the comments as well. So as you're watching the recorded stream, you can see the comments coming in. So you get that almost like live experience, and then it can link out to products. I still don't think these products are able to do dynamic add to basket from direct within the stream, as far as I'm aware. And that's the one bit where I'd love to see live shopping apps. I've spoken to a couple of other providers who've got live shopping technology, and none of them have been able to say definitively that they can enable the execution of add to basket direct from their embed, so that the customer doesn't have to leave to a separate tab. Often the journey is click on a product, it opens it in a separate tab, which is, it's not terrible, but it's not ideal. So I think that's one area in this space where the seamless user experience from a shopping point of view could be improved. There may well be tools out there I'm not aware of, so I'd love it if anyone knows of one to tell me, where live shopping video is being played, the product comes up the hotspot, you click add to basket and it adds it direct to your basket without taking you away from that live shopping page. I would love to know of one. So that's the end. That is our whistle-stop tour of cool, emerging, exciting technology for e-commerce, the use cases, who's using it, how, etc. We hope you found that useful, and we'd love to hear from everyone who's listening. What are your examples of newer tech that people are plugging into their core e-commerce stack that's helping them improve customer experience, drive better conversions, get better efficiency for the e-commerce team through things like automation, like some of the tools Paul's pulled out? Do let us know. Fire us comments on social, email us. We'd love to hear it. And thanks for listening. Keep an ear open for our next episode. We drop it every week. We'd love to know any topics you'd like to see us cover in the future as well. And do subscribe if you haven't already, and give us a rating on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, please. Thanks very much and take care. For more information on this topic, head over to replatform.fm for our audio podcasts. To discuss a project, or if you'd like to chat about any of the topics covered in this episode in more detail, please reach out to myself, James Gurd, or my co-host Paul Rogers via LinkedIn and Twitter. Thanks again for listening, and keep your ears peeled for the next episode.